everybody to In Layman's Terms with Guy Nohra. Um, I have a special guest today. He's probably the youngest guest I've had, which is great. You know, I could almost be, well, I could definitely be his dad. I could even be his grandfather, but that's okay.
Yeah.
We can work across generations here. Uh, in layman's terms, we're just gonna give you right now the view of somebody who is in the Department of War, who's been working there, who has a lot of experiences. So we're just gonna be able to kind of see a little bit of how things work inside. Obviously, nothing that's gonna be confidential or that's gonna help any of our adversaries. But I had met Royce's dad about a year and a half ago, and we had very early conversations with Royce because of his background, which he will tell you. But again, without further delay, I just want to go ahead and start it. First of all, welcome to the show, Royce.
Thank you.
Tell us about yourself. I know there's a baby who's right around the corner.
Right around the corner. Honestly, we're at the point, it's any week now, any day now. We wake up just crossing our fingers. I know I'm ready to have the baby. My wife's 9 months pregnant. She's ready to have the baby. So, but with that, I can talk a little bit about my background and what got me to a place like the DOW and what I've been able to do. And I should preface before I get in that anything that I say is like in no representation of the DOW or anything to do. All the views are my own and my personal experiences. So I'm not a spokesperson for the DOW or anything like that. But yeah, so of course, thank you. Yeah. So I mean, as far as my background goes, obviously, like you said, I might be the youngest. I'm 23. I'll be 24 in February. You can tell me if that's the youngest person you've had or not. So very, very young, I know. But I've had the opportunity, plural opportunities throughout my life to do some what I think are pretty incredible things, not just for my age, but for anybody. And I try to view that very humbly. I'm blessed to be able to do those things, and I'll get into some of that. But for as long as I can remember, I've been in video and production and making content for social media.
For how many years, Royce, were you doing that?
I've been doing it since I was at least 10. So 13, something like that.
Okay, so yeah. Okay.
I've been doing it for as long as some professionals, but when I was a young kid, I was making YouTube videos and posting to Instagram, and after a while of doing that, I decided to hone my skills and try to become actually good at something, and that led me to starting a business with my brother, and eventually working in the political space where I'd always been interested. I'd always liked and admired and had opinions on. But, I've worked on movie sets and things like that at a very young age with mentors, and then shifted to politics, where I worked with some creators and helped them grow their social media. Creators that gave me the opportunity to be very, very close to the then and now president, Donald Trump. I've flown on Trump Force One, which is his personal plane. I've attended UFC fights with him. I've been to his properties and things of that nature. I've been with other presidential candidates and around them. And so just incredible opportunity. And, when you look at my role in those places, I was there to capture those moments. So I'm also incredibly honored to be the guy to capture history in some of those scenarios and a lot of these places that I've been put in. And of course, all of this led up to me finding a position at the now Department of War, or War Department, however you want to word it. Not sure which one sounds cooler, but that's what we want to go with, right? Department of War. And that was, I was full-time at the Department of War for 6 months. And I've since then, as of recently, come back to my home in Florida where my pregnant wife is, and I'll take some time here to have that baby. But not a lot of people put in more than 6 months in a position like that where it's go, 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 go. I had left my family. I found out that my wife was pregnant right before I moved to DC. So it was a little bit of sacrifice, a little bit of nervousness because I'd, again, young, never done anything like that. But went to DC, very excited, and spent 6 months working as hard as I could to accomplish, what we accomplished, which is hundreds of millions of views, 10xing, 100xing what Lloyd Austin did during his his time at the Department of Defense. What we've done with Pete Hegseth is nothing less than, I think, incredible. Is the best word for it, because no other Secretary of War, right, or Defense has been able to accomplish what Pete Hegseth has been able to accomplish. Not just as on social media, like what we've accomplished with him, hundreds of millions of views, not just in that area, but also as a Secretary of War. Again, personally, not speaking for the DoD, I have so much respect for him, just as a human being and as a leader. I've been around him and seen him work, and he's very, very good at his job. And I'm honored to know him and have worked with him.
I have so many questions. I don't even know where to start. So let me go with I'm going to go with like the one, well, they're all incredibly important. About 3 months ago or so, I saw the most incredible 2 to 3 minute kind of "we're back" video.
Mhm.
I don't know if I want to know what your role was. This is the one with like the airplanes, and then the soldiers, and then
Yeah.
Navy.
What was this? Was this the one that played at the Coca-Cola 600? Is that the one
Yes,
that you're talking about?
yes,
So that is a video that I made myself, right, for the deal. Now, I didn't film any of that footage. All of that footage
put it together.
was sourced from a pre-existing footage. So something that we were very, very excited to do with that video is to say and announce that video cost the DoD at the time $0 to make. We didn't commission or contract anybody to film anything. They just had someone like me put together a video with great music, great sound bites, great footage, which the department already owned, and made something with it. And that's one of the videos that, like, I can tell some stories. You mentioned to me before we started,
Yeah.
you served in the military when you were 15 and fighting for your country. And that's something that I didn't do. When I was 18, I think most men, it pops into their head for a moment, hey, what if I served? What if I joined the military? I think most people think about that, and some react and some don't. And when I was 18, I was just starting my business. And of course, it crossed my mind. And I'm a patriot. I like to think that I am. I tried my best to be. And I wanted to serve some capacity, but I never joined the military. And so for me, I went into this position at the DOW as like, this is my chance to give back to my country, in a sense. I know it's just social media and I might be playing it up too much, but this is my chance to like do something that's going to benefit the company, or the country, in the best way that I know how, which is to do what I do best, make social media content, things of that nature. So this video in particular, I'm really glad that you brought it up, because this video in particular is something that I was told, man, this video is going to cause so many people to enlist and want to be a part of the administration and the military and serve their country. This video is going to inspire people to want to be a part of what we're doing, and create patriotism inside their hearts. And that for me was like the coolest thing ever. And yeah, we just did it essentially with scraps. But I loved it. A lot of people loved it, and I'm very, very proud of that one.
Yeah, I got goosebumps when I watched it. It was just incredible. It was, you know why? Because basically, what we were telling ourselves and
Mm-hmm.
the world is that we're still here, and we
Mm-hmm.
still matter, and we're the baddest.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I read it, and that's how I think a lot of people saw it too. And yeah, congratulations to you and everybody that you worked with on this, because
Thank you.
again, it was just it oozed with pride.
Well,
About,
without trying to be too political with it, okay? With putting politics aside, just as a general fact, the previous 4 years before President Trump, before Pete Hegseth, the DoD was not putting out social media content. It was not inspiring Americans to want to join the military and serve their country. It just wasn't. That's an undeniable fact. Go look at the social media pages. Go look at the content that they were putting out. It just wasn't doing that. And so we've been able to flip it on their head, flip that concept on its head and actually make stuff that makes people want to join. Like you said, creates a fire in their hearts to want to be a part of this. I just couldn't be more prideful to be the guy that helped make content like that.
And obviously, the results. I hear that every branch of the military, including the Coast Guard,
Yeah,
huge numbers
through the
of
roof.
people, kids that are joining and that want to be part of it. So I mean, that alone, because I can tell you, if I was 18 and I saw that, I'd be, God, yeah, heck yes, I want to be in this.
Not
So
only young people though, too. As awesome as it is that young people want to join and are inspired to join, people are re-enlisting. Veterans are re-enlisting. People who were kicked out because of something like COVID are re-enlisting because the patriotism in America is back, thanks to President Trump and the leadership that we have with Pete Hegseth and everybody across the board who are true patriots leading this country. People are inspired and people are excited.
yeah, there's nothing wrong with loving the best country on earth, I believe. So so
That's right.
so that's my first question. My next question is, tell me what it's like now. Okay, so when President Trump was running a year and a half ago, I got to speak every time he came to Nevada. I was one of the speakers before him,
Mhm.
and the whole process of Secret Service, and then when you get in, and how they, all these things, and then of course the excitement of, oh my gosh, here it is, it's happening. So tell me what it's like to get the duty to be on Air Force One, Trump One,
Of
but
course, one.
doing something. You're not just, you're just a guest, right? Yeah. Tell me
I was
what you were
working.
doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me what's that like? So again, nothing that's going to help our adversaries or anybody who doesn't like us, but just the experience.
Well, when I was on Trump Force One, it was before the DOW, so I can speak to this no problem.
Okay.
But it was a few years back. I want to say it was 2022, maybe late 2022, going into 2023. And we were in Ohio, and we were filming a video for a creator that I was working for at the time, and we knew that we were going to have the opportunity to go aboard Trump Force One, which is something that I'll never forget. Something that I'll never forget the feeling that I had when I was stepping up onto the plane. You know, y- say what you want about President Trump. There's never been a president like him. There's never been a human being like him, quite like him. He's very unique in his nature and who he is. And so to be in his proximity, to be within his plane and around his people, it's breathtaking. Everything that he does is breathtaking. Just look at what he's done with the Oval Office and the White House in general. He's made it look gorgeous. So in that, following suit to that, his plane looks gorgeous on the inside. Everything's gold. The seatbelts are gold. The trim around the coaster for your cup is gold. When you sit in the plane, you have the little air thing that blows air on you. All gold. Everything's gold. And you're sitting there, and you take off, and you just get to walk around and talk to the president and whoever else is on the airplane. And a few things that I'll never forget. One, McDonald's was the only food on the plane. Those bags, you looked at the back of the plane, there's just bags and bags of McDonald's. As you know, the president loves McDonald's. He has his Diet Coke with him. But a couple stories that I'll never forget. One, I was just standing there in a couple feet behind the president. And he's watching the TV, and he's watching James Brown, and he's watching Elvis, and specifically James Brown was singing. And James Brown, he's got that hair, and he's so extra with it. And President Trump, I'll do an impression right now. For President Trump, he goes, "Wow, that guy's got great hair." And then he looks back at me, he goes, "Just like that guy, he's got great hair." And I'm just standing there, and I'm like, "Thank you, Mr. President." And so that was like something I'll never forget. And that was like my first ever interaction, right? That was interaction number one. And then as the plane was landing, again, I was there just as the video guy. I was there to film. As the plane was landing, everybody had got up kind of in a half circle around the president, who was sitting in his chair, and he was shaking everybody's hands. And in my head, this may have been inappropriate for my position, but in my head, I'm like, this is the opportunity that I have to shake the president's hand aboard his plane. First time ever, right? This is the opportunity. So once it got, towards my direction, I decided I was going to kind of butt in between two people. I was not within the circle. I was outside of it. I pushed my way through to the circle and put my hand out. The president shook my hand. I said, "Sir, it's such an honor to be aboard your plane. I'm here filming, and thank you so much." And he goes, "Wow, that's a great job," And then and that was my experience on the plane. And then we landed at like 2-3 a.m. The president to this day is the hardest working person I've ever witnessed. We were at that event at Ohio. It was freezing cold, so much fun. Flew all the way back. He didn't get back to Mar-a-Lago till at least 3 a.m. And then got up the next morning and probably did it all again. The man is a hard worker. I was exhausted, the ripe age of like 21 at the time. I was beat from that day, and he looked completely unfazed. I'll never forget it.
Yeah. Two things I want to follow up on here. First of all, the hard work. So I remember they would call me and they would say, "Okay, Guy, you're speaking at 5 o'clock. The president is speaking at 6:30. Make sure you get there on time and security and so on."
Mhm.
But then I would look at his schedule, right? And it would be like, okay, he started in Mar-a-Lago at 4 a.m. He flew to North Carolina, gave a speech, flew to Michigan, gave a speech, stopped by Arizona on the way over to us, and then he would come to us last. And I'd be like, I just took a flight from Reno to Las Vegas, and this man has gone 4 different places, given 4 different speeches to probably 140,000 people,
Mhm.
and still a game. I'm a performer. I play music and so on. He comes out and he's just a game. Like tight and on. Amazing the energy, as you said, the energy. The second thing is, for our audience, there's so much uh, just misrepresentation about the personality. And people would always ask me, what do you think? And I go, look, I'm not going to make a decision based on what the news tells me, good or bad. I don't care. I will wait till I meet the individual, the person, and then I will make my own mind. I'm a venture capitalist. I make decisions in like 30 seconds on someone.
Yeah.
So tell our audience. So our audience is in the middle. They're not people that are overly partisan one way or another. They want to know who the man is that's leading their country. So you had a chance to get so close. As a young person, you've got dads and uncles and so on. So tell us what kind of person the president is when, pun intended, the cameras aren't on.
Yeah. So I'm not the person who spent the most time with the president, outside of a public setting. I'm not the person who's been around him all the time, but I've had the opportunity to be around him multiple times, a couple of times when the cameras were off and the doors were closed. And in those moments, the person that you see on TV, the person that you see cracking jokes and talking is the same person behind the scenes from what I've seen. Same person. There's no difference in mannerism or personality. He's funny. He's outgoing. He'll talk to you. I've heard the joke, when you talk to the president, you're not talking. He's just talking to you. It's just how it works, right? He can lead the conversation. He is a natural born leader, no matter what position you put him in. I love seeing historic videos. I say historic, older videos of the president throwing a football at a football game when he's like in his 30s and things like that. He just commands the room and the stadium in some cases wherever he goes, and that goes for in those closed doors moments. So, like I said, I gave that moment where he was complimenting my hair and talking about James Brown, and that's something that he would have said in front of an audience of 200,000, a million people. He said it there in a room full of five. And in my interactions, that's who he is. Who you see is who you get. And I think that's a very, very valuable thing to have and to know about your president. Who you see is actually who you're voting for, not a
Yeah.
different person behind the scenes, not a different character behind the scenes, not someone who's going to make different decisions or think differently. How he tells you he's thinking about it, how he's verbalizing it to you is how he's verbalizing it to everybody else. And it's actually how he's thinking about it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you know what? People always ask me, how could it be, with all this background and all these stories and so on. I said, and I always say, he's authentic. Like
Mhm.
as you say, what you see is what you get. authenticity in any business, but especially in politics, is crucial because people can see through BS. They can see through if you're fake. They can see through if you're acting. They just want the real person, and then they decide if they like them or not. That's how anything works, really. But if you have an authentic CEO, you have an authentic coach, you have an authentic president. It doesn't matter. So you're right. There's an authenticity there that is just. I mean, now that I've again also run into him a couple of times and I see him in action, it's the same. So it's great. So now I'm going to jump to your boss.
Yeah.
So tell us about Peter Hegseth. So when I watch TV as much as I can. I saw him a couple of times before, and I was taken aback at the again after Lloyd Austin, who I thought was again no politics, but really it was an empty suit. Um, because I still remember, the Reagan guys and the Bush guys, and they had a personality. They came on TV and they talked to us and they told us about wars and so on. Anyway, so the vociferous indignation that came out of corners I didn't even know existed to just take on this man, who was now the nominee for this position.
Mhm.
And then, of course, he the president got him through. So personally, I'm a Christian. um, the cross of Jerusalem actually is very close to my heart. I'm from that region. So when people would say this is a Nazi symbol, I'm like, what? did I miss it? What's So again, uh, tell us about Peter Hegseth and tell us about who he is and how he thinks and where his heart is at and his personal life and he's professional. Anyway, so tell us.
Well, Pete Hegseth, the secretary, uh, there's three definite things I can say about him. He's a patriot. He loves his country more than most people would ever know or understand. Obviously, he's got tattoos about it. Every suit that he wears has the American flag embroidered in it. He's somebody who genuinely cares about his country. I've witnessed that. Uh, he loves God. Above all, he loves God. He's a Christian person. He's been very vocal about that. Like you said, he's got crosses on his body, verses. He's very, very deep in the word, and he loves God. I've had the privilege of, and this is obviously been written about multiple times, but once a month at the DOW we have a prayer service. And we have a preacher come in, and people come into the auditorium, and we listen, and it's been written about. And oftentimes I've attended every single one that I could, and oftentimes the secretary will speak, and then a preacher will speak, and there might be some music or some reading or something like that. And that's something that didn't exist in the DOW beforehand. The biggest loss that this country took for the last 4 years, previous administration, was the ripping out of God from our country, ripped out from under us, out from schools, out from everywhere that you looked at, movies, wouldn't talk about it as if it was a bad thing. And with this administration, with this secretary, we're putting God back in the center of our decision making and what we do. And that's something that I really admire about Pete Hegseth, and I've witnessed him be that person in front of the camera and behind the scenes. He cares about his family above all as well. He cares about God, and he cares about his country. And that's all you need to know about the secretary. He's a genuine guy. He knows what he's talking about. He's a warrior. He really is. He knows what he's talking about. And the things that he values and believes are the things that Americans value and believe. And that's something that you can't replace.
Okay. Okay. And so, same question I asked you before. So, how is it to be in proximity to him on a plane as he gets out and on the airplane, but then when he gets out and talks to people, how is that?
Well, the secretary is a very funny man behind the scenes as well. So we've had the opportunity to joke around with him and spend some time with him. But he's, like the president, an extremely hard worker. So when he's on the plane, it's not fun and games at all, really. It's business. It's getting work done and making sure that A, Americans are protected, B, our war fighters are protected, and C, that our war fighters are ready and lethal. That is what he's working on. He wants to make sure that America is on top and safe, that our warfighters are on top and safe. And he'll be that way in front of a crowd. He'll be that way on a plane. That's how he talks. That's what he wants. That's what the president wants. Like they've talked about on social media multiple times, the warrior ethos, being fit, not fat. Those are things that we want. We want to bring back lethal warfighters to the DoD, to the DOW. I mean, still hard to get used to. But
And
and Pete Hegseth is the man to bring that back. Him partnered with the president, America will be stronger than it ever has been, and I think it's under the best leadership that it ever has been.
yeah, and that's just so crucial because the world's a dangerous place, and as we know, and things everywhere you look, something is getting worse and worse, and it's just it, so I'm surprised as somebody who had to be in shape to be in war, how much they let it slip. So again, we both try to stay away from the political arena. This is not a show for politics, but why? Uh, can you understand the frame of mind? Because maybe you ran into some people at the department that were leftovers. Can you understand the frame of mind that says, I'd rather, I don't know, respect the 0.01% of the population and give them space and room rather than the warrior ethos, which is, hey, war is tough. There's
Mhm.
nothing good about it. And we have to be as prepared as we can be because when it does happen, nothing goes as planned. And then you just it's back to your training and to
Mhm.
your buddies and following the chain of command and hoping that the chain of command knows what they're doing. So how what possessed those people to lose track of that?
Well, I wish I could explain it. Well, I don't wish I can explain it because there's nothing to explain. It's just a lack of common sense. Really, I think that over the course of the past administration, things like that, without getting political, like we just lost track of like what really is the purpose of the then Department of Defense. What are we actually here for? It's for protecting Americans and being lethal. And that's something that they lost sight of. And I can't explain why. I wish I could. Maybe I have my own theories, but I don't know for sure. Nobody does know. But somewhere along the line, it went severely off tracks where you're seeing military ads that featured unbelievable people that you would never guess to be in the military or to represent our military, and things of that nature, photos of military. And we're doing away with that, and we're getting back to the picture perfect warfighter, somebody who is in shape, scary, ready to go, lethal. We want people who like actually they're they have America in their best interest. They actually want to protect the country, not just make sure everybody's involved and happy and it's everything sunshine and rainbows. We have a job to do. We have a place to protect, and those are the American warfighters that we want serving our country.
And how would you say the rank and file, but even the officers and even the people at the Pentagon, how did that transition? How did they take that transition? You know,
Well, the Pentagon, contrary to I think what most people believe, is not full of only service members. There's a lot of civilians in the Pentagon who did not serve, but there is a lot of service members. And I came in to the Pentagon a few months after the actual transition, so I didn't see much of that and how that reaction was. But I can only imagine that it was a drastic change. That we quickly and rapidly, like from what we read and what we've heard from the secretary, got rid of the displacement that was at the Pentagon, and we put in place the people who not only deserved, but were the right people for the job. There's a lot of people who were put in positions that they shouldn't have been put in, and we wanted to make sure that the people who are there are actually there to serve their job. And that's just speculation. Again, I wasn't around for the first couple of months during that transition, but the people that are there now at the Pentagon know what they're doing. The Pentagon is in really good shape, and they're going to continue to make sure that the president's agenda is being fulfilled.
Okay. So I'm gonna jump a little bit into something that was slightly uncomfortable. So New York Times, which by the way I've never read, and then I bought it recently. I did a trial for 6 months recently, and then decided, you know what, I can do my own criticism of my people, so I don't need somebody to do it for me. So I 2 days ago I actually canceled. But anyway, so the New York Times had this supposedly heartbreaking story about this individual who binary, all they wanted to do their whole life was to serve their country. They they love it here, and they were I think a pilot or something, and then now they're not allowed to continue. Oh, boo hoo, how sad. Did you follow that story at all, or did you hear about it, or did you?
I've heard, I think I've seen online multiple stories like that. Yeah.
So, what's the answer to the people who have common sense, to the layman people? What's the answer to this? Because I read it and I thought, yeah, okay, I'm Christian, I like to think I'm tolerant, um, but again, I had my own bias, which was
Mhm.
choose choose a side and become it, and then we'll take you from there. So, what's your thought about this? Uh, because what they tried to do is they were trying to paint the Department of War as a negative. This person comes from a family of military since the Civil
Mhm.
War, and now here you are, you're not letting them do the thing that they love the most in the world, and now what happens?
Well,
So
again, I can try to speak to that from a personal level,
sure.
and my personal views, because I never worked at the Department of War at some capacity that made those kind of decisions or even spoke about those kind of issues. But personally, as a young American, I want to see, I'm a Christian as well. I have certain beliefs. I agree and disagree with certain things, and I think that Christian values are where is where America thrives. I think those values that America was founded upon is where America thrives. And there are some people who think differently and have different opinions, and they might be called confused. They might be called these different things, and I might just agree or disagree with that. But I think at the essence of our military, if we want a country that is founded on the word of God, then our military should also be founded on the word of God. When we fight wars, when we defend wars, whatever we do, it should be founded on the word of God. And I think that should just be our guidance through everything.
Yeah, and I agree. I think the at some point, and you'll be back in there. If and I know you have a specific responsibility, but um, just like you explained to me, I think we just need to explain to the American people that this is what the Department of War is about. These
Mhm.
are the kind of people that should be in here, and then but however, our president as well as our secretary and his staff, um, we're good human beings. We try to follow what the Bible tells us, and consequently, we're not going to do anything because we're mean. We're doing
Mhm.
things because we have a job to do, and like with this individual, I would say, we're going to keep you around, but let's find you something. Let's find you something to do. And by the way, this is the ethos that we follow, and you seem like you're one of those people. You're like us, so let's just put the other stuff aside and
Mhm.
all row in the right direction. And so a little bit more of that, I think, because you guys are really, really good at social media. And obviously, I'm spending, especially, pointing at you. You can get that message across so easily. The tolerance message. Tolerant but firm, tolerant but tough. That's the American way.
Mhm.
So yeah, just some stuff like that.
And it's not just me, at the DOW who can take credit for what we've accomplished there. We have a great team of people, of veterans who are on our team, American warfighters who are on our team, who all want the same thing, right? And at the end of the day, it's to have the peace of mind and to be able to sleep peacefully at night, knowing that America is safe and protected. And there are some things that you scratch your head wondering why it's even an argument. Why are we even arguing about this? You
Yeah.
know, what a true warrior is capable of, what they look like, what they're doing, um, how they live their life should be common sense, right? Those are the kind of people. There's a certain criteria of people who are lethal, and there's another who is not. And I'm not saying that anybody specific is or isn't, but you know, when someone enlists into the military, there's certain standards that they have to meet, which the secretary has spoken upon, and I think that goes across the board. There's multiple different things that are taken into account when you want to join the military, and that should not be put aside for anybody in particular for any weird reason. There are certain things that you need to be capable of, and there are certain things that you can't let prevent you from doing those things that you're being asked of. So that's where I stand.
So I'm going to jump into something else, and again, you feel free how you want to handle. I was looking yesterday at polls. One of my guests was Rasmussen pollster
Mhm.
Mark, and he's amazing. I mean, these guys were accurate the whole time. But
Mhm.
anyway, I was looking at the polls of approvals, and President Trump has been consistent in the mid to a higher 40s. Biden's polls went down after the Afghanistan debacle and never recovered.
Mhm.
Okay, there's a bunch of reasons. So what's the, if you can, what's the water cooler discussions on, if you can, on the Afghanistan withdrawal? Like, how could they do? I mean, I was embarrassed to be an American when I saw the way they did this. Like, do you have an opinion? And it could be just your personal, or
Well, as there's an investigation going on into that.
good. I'm
That,
glad finally.
that's been talked about. Sean Pinnell is leading that. There's an investigation into that withdrawal, and I hope that we
They
we get.
wouldn't do an investigation before. They just let it go. It's like, oh
They
yeah,
wouldn't do it, and it wasn't until this administration and Pete Hegseth until that happened, because answers need to be had. People lost their lives. It was a big deal. Like you said, the president at the time lost a lot of credibility over that, and we need answers as to why it went down the way that it did. Why did those 13 service members lose their lives? Could it have been avoidable? And the answer is yes, 100% it could have been avoidable. And I personally don't think that it went down the best way that it possibly could. I think the president had a plan to do it that he spoke about when he was still in office in his first term, and he was going to execute it the safest way for our service members as possible. And Joe Biden went in, and I think, and again, this is just my personal opinion, I think he messed the whole thing up and he caused a lot of damage. And there was no recovering from that. Now, again, I think Joe Biden has done things during his presidency, uh, I think there's dozens of things that he just should not have recovered from. And for whatever reason, he was elected. I remember thinking beforehand, I think he's always had some cognitive abilities, disabilities, and things like that before he was actually elected president. And I remember thinking, I don't know how this guy is going to win against a Trump second term. And he did. And there's a whole discussion on that and whether that was fair or unfair. But you know, that is something that Joe Biden and the Democrat Party could not escape. It was undeniably bad. It was a bad scenario, and it does not shock me that his numbers, approval rating, did not go up after that.
But for me, what I think is also very very disturbing is, the president. I mean, I've been a CEO. You're up here. You've got your people doing things that they're supposed to be doing. So somehow, from the chain of command all the way up to the bottom, uh, no one did a good job. I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, the Secretary of Defense should take responsibility for this. Whoever was in charge of the region, SETCOM or whatever the Middle East region is,
Mhm.
uh, what were they doing? Plus, I thought we were going to keep the base. Why did we give up? One of the largest bases. By the way, that's only a couple of 1,000 miles from China.
Mhm.
You know, 100 miles from China, which is already one of our biggest adversaries.
Yeah,
So,
those
so the
those
thing is,
questions
yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
somebody's got to pay the price.
we've got to know the answers. And those questions exactly are why I think it's being investigated, for many reasons, but those above all, there are so many things that were overlooked with that withdrawal. And I think we'll eventually find out more when the DOW speaks more about it. But there are so many things that I think were overlooked in that. And it was just like a blatant, like, like it was ignorance. They withdrew and it was inappropriate the way that they did it, and it was rushed, and it was not done right. And it is a great shame.
You know, uh, uh, I'm never incendiary, and it's never my intention. But sometimes I get so upset, and I apologize. I'm still very mad about Benghazi.
Hmm.
I will never get over Benghazi because I have been those guys that
Hmm.
were left behind. My take is that, in general, is that for some reason the left in this country um, is almost embarrassed of our power. And the biggest symbol of our power is our military. So they never put any resources there that are important. It's almost like a second thought. And of course the things they care, and I also care about the economy. That's also something they don't spend a lot of time on. So my layman interpretation here is that it just wasn't important. I don't even know if they even told the president that it was happening, and it's just like whoever his chief of staff, Ron Klain, it's like, yeah, we're gonna get out of there. What the heck, the people want to get out. The polls say that the Americans want to get out of there, so let's just get out. And no one paid attention because no one cared. That's just my thing. It's just like we're probably going to find that out. But anyway, I
Well,
digress.
to your point, the president probably didn't even know about it. You find out things like the auto pen and how that was manipulated and things like that. And it makes you wonder, a lot of these big decisions that Joe Biden made, did he actually make? And we could probably go back through his time and with a checkbook, say what did he and did he not do? And I'd like to see that come out. I'd like to see I guess on paper, what did Joe Biden himself actually accomplish? And I think it would be a very, very low number of things, considering he vacationed for over half his time in the White House, and most likely other people were making uh, most of, if not all of the decisions on his behalf.
And on the military, who probably were not qualified, or
100%.
who
100%. I don't.
didn't care. So I have three more questions. I
Okay.
can't wait. Okay, so first one is, to my big consternation, this past weekend, everybody's so upset about, oh my God, he flew all these generals over and he's going to give them a speech.
Mhm.
What a waste of time! What a waste of money! What a waste, And I'm sitting here going, I was a venture capitalist, the head of a venture capital firm. I had 120 portfolio companies, and every year I invited every CEO to a retreat so that we can all discuss the direction, and so they see the guidance that we have, and so that they talk to each other, and that they learn, so that the whole is larger than the sum of its parts.
Mhm.
So why did people freak out about this? This was probably the best thing we could have done.
Mhm.
So what's your take on this? It's like, I was like, thank God we have them all in one room.
I think it doesn't shock me that the left freaked out that we were having a meeting like this. Anything that we do, they're going to be upset about and they're going to complain about. So that doesn't shock me at all. What shocks me most about that meeting is when the secretary talked about our generals being fit and not fat, and that we're not going to look down the halls of the Pentagon and have fat generals who are supposed to be leading military, and they're setting the worst example for themselves. That made people upset. When we talk about where did the common sense go, that's like top of it right there. That's like a perfect example. People who are supposed to be lethal and in shape and training people and being an example for people
Yeah.
should be in the best shape as possible. This is the United States military. We've let things slip, over time in different ways, but in fitness itself, it's something that has to be reeled back in. And I, for one, as an American, taking politics out of it, would appreciate having generals who are fit and not fat. And that's just common sense, I think. And at the base of it, it's something that Americans should appreciate and should also want. Why they don't, I don't know.
First of all, thanks for pointing this out, and I hope that all of our audience realizes how important that is. I'm going to give you an example from my days. I had one of my commanders said to me, he had sent me on a specific mission, and someone next to him had said, "Well, Commander, you shouldn't go on the same mission. It's very dangerous." And the commander said, "I'm not going to send anybody, much less a 15-year-old boy, into a mission that I wouldn't do myself.
Mhm,
So if I'm a general, I better be as good a shape for my age as any of my soldiers."
mhm,
As right?
mhm,
I mean, that's why is that? Why is this a surprise for people? Again, this is what I don't understand. Is that please, you're setting the example. You are the leadership. If I
mhm,
come in and I see my general out of shape and can't run half a mile, they'll have a heart attack again. So this is something and I'm so glad that was brought up. So that's the first thing. The second thing I was going to ask you is, right before the interview, I took a shower this morning and I was like, am I going to shave? Am I not going to shave? So beardo, I'm a little worried.
uh,
I, what was that? Do I qualify, or is that a problem?
no, I think you're good. I don't know all the logistics on that one, but it's an interesting one. And I can't say I don't understand why some people would complain about it because people like their facial hair. They do. But my brother's a pilot, and for safety reasons for himself, he's not allowed to grow a full beard. He can have a mustache or a goatee or something like that. But in the event that, let's say, the plane was going down, he wouldn't be able to properly put on an oxygen mask if he had facial hair. And the equipment that our military uses, for their own safety, if you have facial hair, it can be dangerous for you. And that's the extent of what I understand it personally. I don't know the extent of where it goes further, but it makes sense to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, the common sense is there. Why
Yeah.
people would fight it? If you have a great beard and you join the military and you're upset that you have to shave your beard or something of that nature, boo hoo. You can be upset about it, but starting a whole I don't know, going to social media and ranting about it and trying to get people behind you on this thing that if accomplished only hurts you. I don't think they understand that. If they get away with, which they're not, right? It's just not. But like, they're going to complain about it. But let's say that we did away with it and they could have their beard and it was no problem. In the situation that they needed to use a piece of equipment where their beard was hindered, it only hurts them. So I don't know. Again, I think the DoD is there to protect American people and the warfighters, and that just plays right into that. You know, we're trying to protect you.
Yeah, again, I thought it was kind of funny, and I was worried. But then the last question I'm going to ask you, and this probably, since you're in the military, it's above your pay grade, but it's something that I think is pretty important for people like me. I'm a conservative, obviously. So the Department of War hasn't passed an audit in 7 years, a financial audit. So that's 4 years of Biden. Of course, that's expected, right? But I think we should have better standards. I think we're better than that. Um, so I had a field day criticizing 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 2 years ago, that whole thing. So it's something that we need to get done. I don't know if the staffing is there or not. I volunteer if you ever talk to someone who's your boss when you go back. I don't mind doing a 1.5 year kick ass take names. I have nothing to lose, right? It's not like it's going to influence my reputation, or it's going to, I'm doing this for the good of the country, and I'm doing this for the good of the department. We need to balance. We need to know we can't not have an audit. We can't not if one of my companies, public companies, would flunk an audit, they would be out of business.
Mhm.
It's that simple. And I think the discipline of the private world is actually not bad to have in government. People complain all the time about this. But one of the best things about President Trump is that all of these people are actually business people. And then they understand, what a balanced budget should look
Mhm.
like. So I know the Pentagon has gazillions of dollars that come in and out, and it's but we need to fix that, because I think it's our credibility as a party, as rulers, but also as a country. It's something that should be done. So when you go back in there, and I see you as someone who's going to move up very quickly. You're very bright. You have great hair.
Thank you.
You're very bright. You're young. You're ambitious. You're gonna move up, and
I appreciate that.
and the more you move up, I think the more you can actually bring these kind of things. Maybe they're doing something about it already, but it's the kind of things where I, as someone who cares so much about my country and all of my departments, it's just I want us to be A plus.
Mhm.
I say, deadly in every. I want to be an A plus in every position and in every area that we're in. So just something to keep in mind. But otherwise, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I think that's the biggest advantage of having a president like President Trump, who's a true businessman who has made money and knows how money works. I think that's very important. Knowing how money works and having a president who understands it is crucial. And the Department of War, they have a Doge department who's been very public. We've cut a lot of money, millions and millions of dollars, billions maybe, I don't know the exact figure, but a lot of money from the department. And we want to use that money. I think we should use that money to better our warfighters, to better our country. So in terms of an audit, I don't know the complexity or what that process looks like, but putting that aside, being a normal American who maybe doesn't understand all of those things very well, it's refreshing to have a president who does, and to know that we have something like Doge, whose purpose is to help the American people, the American taxpayer, save money. So for me, as just an average Joe, let's say I wasn't in the DOW, that's something that I would look at and it would give me peace of mind.
That I agree with you, and I think hopefully within the next 3 years and 7 years, we will get that done, because then I think it just makes us feel proud about even prouder about our
Mhm.
department. So we're gonna finish with you. So baby's coming any day.
Any
I,
day now. We're,
I,
we're, we're trying to be as prepared as possible, but first child, first grandchild for both of our parents on both sides. So big moment for the Chamberlain family, but we're excited. And
Baby Asher, I understand.
Asher is his name. It's a boy. Bloodline continues. So
Very
I'm excited
good.
about that.
Very good Bible name, biblical name. So
Yes,
that's good.
sir.
Um, my wish and my hope and my prayers are that the process is smooth and beautiful, and I, get ready to have mom and dad there all the time, because that's
I
what
know.
grandparents do. And God bless you, and thank you for your service with us. And let me know. Let's stay in touch when you get back to work. Let me know how that's going. And I think I'd love to stay in touch with you. I think you do great work. And now every time I see anything from the Department of Defense, I'm gonna know who's behind it, and
That's right.
I'm gonna ping you and say, "Great job."
I love it. Well,
You don't have
thank
to
you so much. Thank you so much for all the good wishes, and thank you for having me on this. It's a great honor of mine to sit here and talk to you. I have a lot of respect for you, so thank you so much for doing this. And I'm so glad that we're connected and we're able to do this. So,
Thank
and
you.
my promise to you, and I guess anybody watching, is anything that I can do to help better our country. I know I'm put in a position that not many people, especially my age, have the opportunity to be put in. I'm put in this position, and I want to do everything in my power to, at the smallest level, and however big I can, benefit the country.
Thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you.
Okay.